Okay, yeah, let's get going. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the May 2023 regular meeting of the Oak Hills Park Authority. Getting into the season and excited to talk about a bunch of really important topics today. We are going to have a packed agenda, so I will ask reports that don't really require any action or just informational to be kept brief. We do have a couple of items of old business, new business that might be introduced in a report, but we will have a little bit of discussion um, in agenda item number 7. Um, so the first order of business, is a roll call. So for the OHPA members, I will just go in the order that I see you on the screen. And just note your presence by saying here or present. Um, First up is Alan Dutton.
Yeah.
Dan Dresco, I am here. Denise Brown.
Here.
Bellinger.
Here.
Gary Leeds. I see Gary and I heard him, I saw him move, so he's on mute, but I will accept it. Thanks, Gary. And TJ Trimboli.
Here.
So that's 6 members. We have a quorum. Jennifer McAllister sends her apologies. She's on a plane right now. So we can move on to next order of business, which is acceptance of the meeting minutes from our April 20th meeting. I'll ask if anybody has any changes or amendments that they'd like to make. I hope everybody got a chance to review them. I got a chance to give a pretty cursory view, but I didn't see anything that was thematically wrong. Maybe little things here and there, but nothing too concerning. And I thought that they handled one of the motions, which was a little trickier, very well. So thank you to the note taker. So one more pass for any amendments or changes to the meeting minutes. And hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as they are. Any objections? I'll just ask for objections. Hearing none. Any abstentions? Hearing none, I will say that those meeting minutes are approved. And we can move on to item number 3, public comment. Mark, I don't see any attendees, but am I doing something wrong? Maybe you see something.
I see no attendees here.
Okay, I mean, not beautiful. I wish we had people making public comment, but that does mean that we can close public comment and move on to item number 4, report of the chair. Taking my own medicine, I will keep it brief and just say, as I said earlier, we are getting into the season. It's very exciting. The financials through March and the early look at April financials are really good. We'll hear more about that. And that means that the course is getting a lot of usage, but it's in great shape. So we've been able to maintain what we've been going for, what we've had going for the past couple of springs. And this is all about now momentum into summer and making sure that we deliver on all the financial commitments that we made during budget season. Speaking of, we're going to heat up on budgeting soon. And so Jim and Paul, from a staffing perspective, and Mark tying it all together, would definitely want to make sure that we're hitting all of our targets so that we can vote on a budget in our June meeting, so that we have it to deliver to the city by July 1st. That's our commitment. That's in our charter, and that's what we want to achieve. So I see Mark giving a thumbs up, so I have every assurance that that will happen, and that things are going well. I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about it too tonight. So not to belabor anything, I'm going to just say that that's the report of the chair. And we can move on, close out item number 4 and move on to item number 5, management reports. And we'll start with Paul, the golf pro.
Okay, thank you very much. Our golf course is in great condition and we're seeing full tee sheets now that the weather is nice and that we haven't had too much rain. Golf Now is continuing to drive lots of golfers to our course from far away as Long Island, Manhattan, Rockland, Westchester County, and Central Connecticut. And our reputation of great putting surfaces is also helping drive golfers to Oak Hills Park. At the moment, we are charging peak rates from opening to 2 o'clock, off peak from 2 to 4. Twilight starts at 4. We might change a little bit as the days get longer here. The golf course opens every day at 6:30 during the week, 6 o'clock on weekends, and closes at 6 p.m. Golf shop's full of new merchandise. I don't think it's ever looked better, but sales are just a little slow. We have recently added 2 outings so far. So our total this year is 18. Every Monday has been taken for an outing from May 1st to October 9th, other than the holidays and the Mondays in August. And August is always very difficult because lots of people are traveling and doing things. New outings this year are Tunnel to Towers, which you already had, was fabulous. Chelsea Piers, the 100 Club, the Old Place, Team Jesse, and we have Retained to Walk returning from 2021. We also have a Southern Connecticut Women's Golf Association event coming up in July. There'll be 80 women coming from all over Connecticut. This Tuesday, very exciting, we have the Connecticut State Golf Association having a qualifier here for the State Amateur Championship. We'll have 125 golfers coming. They're teeing off at 7:30 and they stop at about 1:10. Also Row 8 Yacht Club has booked some sort of golf event. It might be a day we close the golf course if they get enough people later this fall. And Golf Genius and the digital scoring has been really a big hit for our outings and some of our men's and women's golf events. And Steve Shepard's really helped us with that. He was instrumental in getting us the premier package, but it's really given a kind of a much better look to all our outings here, and a lot of people really love it. So 48 annual passes have been sold since December 15th, and I think that should be it for the year. Our old golf shop at the First Tee has new carpet put down and is freshly painted. It's really looking good. Our scoreboard has been painted. Part of the deck on the terrace has been painted. And we're pouring concrete next week to build a synthetic tee line at the range to accommodate all our clinics. 68 golf carts, all working well and running good, looking good. We presently have an inside golf shop staff of 10, outside staff of 26, and we added 2 new people recently. And in closing, I just want to let people know that, give you an idea of the activity at Oak Hills Park. In 2020, we had 44,570 rounds. We were closed for 7 weeks from March 16th to March 8th. In 2021, we had 48,750 rounds, 54% of those using carts, 46% walking. In 2022, as we started to open up a little more, we had 44,000 rounds almost, 52% of those using carts. And this year we're expecting a minimum of 43,000 rounds. So things are really good at Oak Hills Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
That was 44, 48, 44, and this year trending to 43.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, it's really good. Any questions for Paul? All right. A perfect report if there's no questions. Thanks, Paul. Jim, you want to take it away?
Yep. All's good with the course. We're having good luck with staff finally. It seems like it's getting back to normal just with higher wages. That's all. You know. The rental apartment is ready to go. It just needs a quick cleanup and an electrical connection for the dishwasher. So I don't know who's gonna take the wheel on that one, but if we're gonna rent it out, let's do it. Greens, tees, and fairways are looking good. I don't really foresee any problems with grass as of yet. I reserve the right to declare a disaster. But bring your ball locators and hard swings if you're coming to play, because the rough is it's flushing right now, so it's growing fast. I am going to restock our irrigation pond with grass carp, and it's fairly inexpensive, but all the ones we have had, I think, are gone. There's one koi left in the pond, and he doesn't help us with weeds. I don't know what he eats, but it's not weeds. And that's been a problem in the past couple of years where the algae has bloomed so well that the suction line has, for the irrigation pump house, has gotten clogged. So it's kind of a necessity. I have to go through some permitting for that. It's no big deal. We'll get it done. Our new equipment, Fairway and Greens mowers, they're awesome. The Fairway mowers, we can cut and not have to blow every time after we cut. There's no mess of clippings all over the fairway. And our greens mowers, they're terrific as well. I mean, they save on labor in, allowing us to not blow the greens beforehand. They pick up everything, as opposed to our old John Deeres that, would just kind of roll over a lot of the debris on the green. So those were good choices. We're doing good with those. And I think that the rest of the stuff I wanted to talk about is reserved for new business. The cart path repairs. So if anybody has any questions, that's it for me.
Hey, Jim, can you just tell us about the fish and how they eat the algae and that type of thing?
Well, that's what they do. I mean, I don't know why they do it. They're hungry. They eat weeds and algae.
It just helps keep.
And they work.
Yeah,
They do. They do. I mean, since they've been dying, it's been getting worse and worse. And right now we're at a point where if we don't have a flushing rain, we're going to have quite a bit of algae.
So Jim, are there any OSHA issues at the moment? I know, we did have that inspection a while ago and the guys came and, is there any handbook issues or
Right.
did the guy come over? What do you think about that?
I had a meeting at Public Works yesterday. I'm losing track of time. And there is a company that the city has hired to inventory all chemistries on all sites that were inspected. And they're going to come here and help us develop a hazard communication plan, which is the last piece of the puzzle that we have to figure out, sort out.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine with the help of that company that it's going to be fairly simple to do. So that's all settled there.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I know we discussed and voted last meeting about how we would deploy the rental house asset. And it really towards an assistant golf pro. As we continue this, I'd really like to make absolutely sure that that's not going to come to fruition before we go in the opposite direction, because it was a really well debated conversation and something that I really came to embrace as a comp package, as a usage of that asset, and as something that would be good for the course. So like I said, just really want to make sure that I know, Paul, you probably feel like you have, and I don't mean any disregard for the effort that you put into it, but just want to make sure we turned over every stone, because it seems like the right thing to do. But if it's not, let's get it rented. Let's get some revenue out of it.
I would say it is would be the right thing to do. I have a lot of resumes here. There still might be one person, but I did get some college kids back, and I did have 2 qualified people, but they decided not to work here because we don't pay enough. So I'm kind of giving up on the idea of putting an assistant there at least for this year. But I do have somebody who's interested, and they're interested right away. And he plays golf here, and he's a good guy.
Okay.
So if you wanted to rent it, I'm sure we could get him in there. He's ready to look at it tomorrow.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant interested in assistant pro role.
No,
Okay, that's
no.
good too.
Yeah.
The other option is good too. Okay, that's not for discussion now, but
Is-
you know, as kind of a overall
Does-
discussion.
Is there any interest in, does it help Jim at all if he uses that as an incentive for any of his people?
I have an apartment that an assistant is in right now.
Yeah,
So, I mean, do we house, seasonal employees?
I'd worry about that. Management, I think, is okay, but seasonal employees, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
It's kind of, we don't have what they call technically a monkey house, and we don't want that to become one.
right. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We can go on to the financial report. Mark, what do you have for us?
I'm gonna be somewhat brief. For the budget, I am behind. However, I've got the next 10 days or so where I'm over the hump, so to speak, and I have a lot more wiggle room where I can spend time doing this. Jim and Paul I've already been working with. They've already given me numbers. And we're gonna meet with Alan next Wednesday on the capital expense budget. So it's basically my job now to just tie it all together and present it to the finance committee for review, and then eventually to the entire authority. So that'll be coming up real soon. Next week's gonna be basically budget. So and in addition, yeah, I actually can't wait to send out financials. April was ridiculous in regard to, it blew away prior year, blew away budget. I think the revenue is like $100,000 for the month
Yeah.
over budget. In April, it's hard to get. So it really has set us up. We were already doing very well for this for the year, but it could rain every day in June and we're still going to hit budget. So we're good for the year.
Right.
But fish will love that, but golfers won't. That's great. Mercy on Mark's. He's not feeling well, so thank you for kind of chiming in. But we can entertain some one-word answer questions for Mark, maybe, if anybody has any.
So not just for Mark, but for members of the authority, I am meeting on Wednesday with Mark and Paul and with Jim just to look at some capital for next year. But if any authority members would just like to reach out to me before then, and just to, if there's anything that you think is important, just before, obviously be able to, talk about it, at our next meeting. But if there's anything that's near and dear to your heart or anything you think should happen, let's get a dialogue going about it. So just reach out to me either, email or phone, whatever, and I'll be happy to chat and and let's bring it to the table.
Yeah. If we can refrain from having that conversation right now, let's just kind of ideate through email or through conversations, and then let's really bring that conversation to fruition during the budget discussions.
Yep.
Do we have a list of proposed items, or this is to make the list now?
I got a few people reached out to me after last meeting. I sent a note out asking for suggestions. So, and we already have a 3-year listing. So between, Jim is the biggest part that really needs to be part of this, because a lot of the stuff is on the course and in the building. So we kind of have a makeshift template that we will kind of insert and move things around to see what is the priority for the coming year.
Once you get that kind of aggregated with the couple of ideas that you've already gotten and the existing ideas, can you send that around so that people can kind of make sure they've got the latest and greatest?
Yes.
Beautiful. Just tack on to that email that you sent back late April.
Perfect.
Okay, anything else for Mark?
Feel better, Mark.
Yeah. That's
Thank you.
He sounded a lot better a few hours ago.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Herbal tea, honey.
I've been having these coughing jags throughout as Paul can tell you, throughout the whole week. And just, I don't know, I also feel some allergies, so I don't know what's going on.
Bad week for allergies.
Allergies are no fun, I agree.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Let's move on to agenda item number 6, which is committee reports, and we'll start with the tennis committee and Denise.
Okay, hello, everybody. So last Wednesday, I was at the Parks and Rec meeting, and it was to speak about the naming of the plaque for Art Goldblatt. So that went very well. I described what we would like to do about, naming the plaque after the newly built patio. It was in honor of Art, and we wanted to have a celebration at the end of the summer. And Robert Stowers had said that he was in full support, and everybody there was in full support of it, and that it aligned with the ordinance requirements, so that was good. The next step we have to do is to figure out how we want to design the plaque and present it to the Cultural Affairs Council Committee for approval. So that's the next step. I'm just not quite sure how to go about that at the moment, since we're talking about the pergola and location wise and things like that. So that's something we'll have to discuss with the Friends of Tennis and kind of make sure that's on our agenda so that we can get something as a design and present it to them, because it's just going to take time. These things move slowly. So I'm hoping that we can get this by the end of the season, at least by October. And the courts are up and they're running, they're busy. There's a lot of people wanting to play tennis, so they've been there and it's been active, which is great. I do think we're kind of still working out the water problem. There was some kind of glitch in the system over the weekend. They were overwatered, so they couldn't play on Sunday morning till about noon. But when I played on the courts on Tuesday, they were dry and the bounce was really high on the ball. So I don't know, they have to kind of figure that out. I did talk to Clive about it, so he's trying to work on it where it's, an even kind of moisture on the court and not over damp and not over dry. So that will probably just take time to work it out, I guess. And I had a meeting today with a company called Oval Tennis, because they were giving us a new quote on the large courts, the 6 courts, because we have a volunteer who is part of the Friends of Tennis, and he put in an application with the USTA National Association, and he also put an application in for the Connecticut chapter. So we have 2 applications going in to have funds for the fencing. It's not going to be a lot of funds. It's like 5,000 from each if we get approved, but it's still 10,000 towards, the repairs and the redoing of the courts. And then we have some money in our fundraising account. And then we'll have to also think about some new projects to bring in more money. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot, a lot more going on. I'll let Rich, when it's time, you can talk about the pergola.
Sure.
I think that's on the agenda for new old business. I did get a lot of compliments on the new courts that we did over. A lot of people are noticing it. They're like really feeling good about it. So, the
Great.
tennis there's new things happening there. So it's really good. It's positive.
Good.
Yeah.
Rich, is there going to be any action required on the pergola, or is it just an update?
I was out of town for 2 weeks, but I went back to City Hall for the 3rd time today and spoke to the building department, and we're very close. I still need one more detail on the structure about the steel detail that I'll have to get in the next couple of days. And I also go to the fire marshal. I spoke to a guy at the building department, Peter Kelly, today, and he didn't think the fire department would be any problem getting the approval. It's just a kind of pro forma. And after that, we have to get a letter. The contract, whoever puts it up, has to have workers' comp or have a form filled out making an exception. And then we need a letter from you, Joe, I guess, authorizing the thing to be constructed, something from the authority. So we're close. Yeah. And so I think I spoke to the assistant fire marshal, and he said sometimes approvals take a week to 10 days. So I'm hoping by the end of the month, we'll have everything pretty much taken care of in terms of approvals. And then I'll
Great.
let you know.
Okay, so really not anything for us to act on in this one.
No, and I think the motion was pretty much if we get all the city approvals, I think then you could give them a green light. They would just like to
Yes.
know that they have a green light to start their fundraising efforts.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
yeah.
So then, yeah, let's proceed. I mean, great legwork that you're doing to get all the approvals and permits and make sure that we're on the good side of all of that. And then once that's through, I'll take one more look at it as
Sure.
what's been approved, and yeah, I'll authorize a letter.
We did move it somewhat from the last meeting, basically because of the well. And
Mhm.
Jim had contacted our well guy and wanted to make sure that footing was a minimum of 3 feet away from the wellhead. And
Mhm.
so we did move the pergola position away from the building just about a foot or two further than originally. But it gives us that clearance for servicing the well. And that was the only change in terms of the location.
That's a clear hardship that would impact the placement. So it's
Yeah.
it's a good thinking.
I have a quick question. I had thought that the walkways were going to happen this year. Is that still on the books?
Well, kinda.
Mhm.
We have a meeting on Sunday with the Friends of Tennis, so I wanted to talk with them about where we were gonna spend the money and if we were gonna do the one walkway from the office to the 2 courts. I just kind of held off on it right now because I want to talk more about if we should spend the money now or kind of hold on to it towards the fencing or split it up or what we should do. Because until we start raising more money, we got to budget what we have the best way we can. So,
Just
and
curious.
since Chris Halsey put in the 2 grants, now we've got that ball rolling, and I want to make sure that we have the opportunity, if we get that money, to, be able to act on it, which nothing would happen till November at the earliest, but still, since that's rolling, I don't want to kind of get that money and then get stuck with no opportunity to
Yeah.
kind of move forward. So,
All right, thanks.
okay.
All right. Any other questions for Denise? Hearing none, we can move on to restaurant committee. And Alan, do you have anything for us?
Oh, no, just a quick update. Been stopping by 2 or 3 times just to say hello to the restaurant, and kind of pleased to say we have a couple of new staff members there. We have a new chef and someone else behind the line there on a consistent basis. I did meet them and say hello to them. They seem quite nice people, and I was just talking to them. I see the same faces, Noel and the young gentleman behind the bar there, and a couple of other staff there. So I'm seeing a little bit of consistency, and I've been in there. There have been some people in there, which I'm pleased to hear. So I think we're on the right path in this area. I know the golf cart now is up and running and going around. And I believe, Mark, that the obligations are being paid on a timely basis, which I think is great. So I think things are running at the moment relatively okay.
I happened to just order 2 pizzas from the restaurant this evening before I got here in this thing. And there's a nice group of 75 people in the restaurant. So it was very busy and they're very active. And my pizzas were 30 minutes late, but I got them and took them to the tennis courts for our 60+ team. But it looked good, and there was a lot of activity in the service.
I think tonight is the West Norwalk Association has a function there. I think Richard.
Oh, great.
So I think I had I said, do I go there? Do I go there or do I go here? So I figured this has more priority.
Well, at this rate, maybe you can catch the tail end of that. Um, um, any other questions for Alan?
Yeah, I'd like to know how, based on Paul's note and everything, how the restaurant is coordinating with outings.
I'm not too sure, to be honest with you, as far as what Don negotiates with the people coming in through the outings. I mean, obviously the idea is to give them a market value. Whether $16 for a continental breakfast is over the top, I'm not sure what the industry standard is for a continental breakfast in Fairfield County, the golf outing. I guess it was $9 in the past, whether that was for coffee and stuff. I'm not sure. But Gary, if you like, I can probably take a look and see and chat and see. It's obviously in Don's best interest, to be honest with you, to get the food and beverage for these functions, because it's a fixed cost, it's fixed labor, it's fixed food and beverage, and you can build your profit margin in there. But I don't know what the pricing is, to be honest with you.
Okay, because I will say I did go in after my round. It was around 1:30, 1:45, and I asked for tuna fish sandwich because they didn't have chicken salad, and it did get served promptly, and the service was very nice. But we were the only two people in the restaurant at that hour. So it was nice to see. Next month I'll go in and ask for a cooked meal and see how that goes. But I think it's very important that the restaurant's able to provide outings with food, because that's one of the things that will help the restaurant, survive. So
I agree.
That's a strong indication of a full service golf and food and beverage service. And I think it's key. Paul, maybe if we alight here for just a moment, can you super briefly just go through the communication that you do with DDSA about outings and the linkage between the people planning and organizing them and you, and what you know of what you pass on to DDSA?
Well, years past, I've had a lot of experience with outings, and it was kind of mandatory to use the club or we wouldn't have the outing, the food and beverage. It was really part of it. And ever since I've been here, I've always said, all right, you can have an outing here. This is what it costs. We ask you if you could have one meal at the restaurant. I don't force them. I say, breakfast, lunch, dinner, hors d'oeuvres, or maybe a barbecue at the turn. And then I just forward them. I send an email from that person over to Don and Jennifer, and they pretty much handle it from there.
Lisa.
Not Lisa, no. Jennifer, who really books a lot of the outings. And then I think she handles it from there.
Maybe it would be useful to add Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was hoping. And do they have a list of all the outings that are happening?
Yeah. I have a sheet right here behind my door for everyone to look at, but we do have a Google Drive that I have Jim on there, and I think Mark and Don and Jennifer, and I just keep updating that. There's emails, there's a number of people we expect, phone numbers. I even rate some of the outings a little bit. Yeah, I just say this is a big one. This is a good outing here at the club, But I will say this, that it's very important, even though Oak Hills might not be making any money off food and beverage at an outing, but it is important to have some food and beverage, because that's just going to keep the outings here.
Yeah.
And if, obviously some of them have to go off site, or they want to go off site, or they try to keep it to a minimum, because they're all charity. I mean, we did all these are charity outings, so all the money goes to good causes.
No, it's an emblem of a full service experience. And
I think what would help us, and look very professional, is just to have an outing package, A, B, C, D, or door 1, 2, 3, and have them pick and be able to give that to them right away.
I think the not-for-profits traditionally want to put all their money into, are interested in not spending a lot of money at all on food and beverage if they can get away with it, and they kind of go outside elsewhere, a lot of them. I think if there are any other outings that are not so much for charities or not for profits, then there's definitely great opportunities there, I think. So I think that's one thing we can focus on. But it is tough with a lot of the not for profits. But I think I agree, Paul. It would be good to have something down in writing rather than negotiating individually with each one. I think I agree. I'll bring it up with Don.
I have a question. I see the emails coming out from Paul and the golf, and they're fantastic. So it's we're really pushing the golf. And I know, honestly, I think Kings Highway has pushed out more emails this spring than they have about the tennis than I remember ever seeing. I just don't see anything about the restaurant. I mean, whose plate is that? How can we use that email to try to encourage people to eat at the restaurant? I mean, is that on the restaurant's plate, or is that something they can do, or is it not easy to do?
I would say it's fairly easy to do. And, I've been willing in the past to do that. In fact, some of the stuff you see on the restaurant page, I put up. And
That's the Oak Hills
yeah,
website
so
restaurant.
I think DDSA uses their own website a little bit, but I think we reach well over 10,000 people, and that's continuing to grow. Every time we have clinics, I take all those people and I
Yeah.
unload all those names into our mass file. But also I'd given them our marketing company. I mean, our marketing company is fabulous. I'm overwhelmed how fast they respond, how good these people are. They're familiar with us now for many years now. And, we pay for that, but that's at their disposal if they want to use it.
Hmm.
And
I would like to see more information come out. I don't know whose job, and maybe I don't want to put more work on you, Paul, particularly. It'd be maybe someone else, but
no, I didn't mind doing it, and I enjoyed it, and I tried to get our website as good as possible, and it really does drive people to the course. And
I mean, the website is good. What's on there is very helpful, but I don't think people go to the website. I think they need to kind of have it more in front of them.
I agree.
Alan, so it sounds like the restaurant is surviving more with events versus just people coming in and eating, the public coming in and dining. Is that kind of how it's being handled right now?
That's the way in any restaurant, Denise, that has people coming outside. Yeah, you make your money in private events and the bar, and if you, I won't say you lose money, but you don't make any money in the restaurant really, unless you get volume. Once you get volume, it's a different thing. Yes.
So we're not getting that much just foot traffic coming in, people coming to the restaurant. It's more events.
Well, I really don't know. I haven't looked at the track record how many days private events and how many covers on a daily basis, because it's second week of May, so I haven't really seen too much. But I do believe you're correct. Yes.
I can tell you. I mean, I walk by it all day long, and it's just not full enough. It could be more full, but Alan said the money's made on the parking lot's full now with people. So it's and the outings. I think our first outing had a breakfast and a lunch there. The second outing might have had a lunch. Our third outing didn't use the restaurant at all. But yeah, it's the events, and not to mention we do have the halfway house and the beverage cart, so a lot of people are using that. But me personally, as a golf pro, I'd like to see events, not too many, but I think we should do a Mother's Day, a Father's Day, a Masters, a July 4th, a brunch every once in a while, just to try to get people to the golf course and get the name out there. Take advantage of the holidays and some of the big days during the summer.
Yeah. Okay. Moving things along a little bit. Any final questions for Alan? Okay, hearing none. We can move on to Jerry with supporters.
Okay, I'll make it quick. I don't have a report. Mark will have information for me probably in July or August timeframe as to where we did for the fiscal year.
Okay.
There's been no activity, no new donations in the last couple of months.
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
Beautiful.
I want to mention one thing. Years ago when Carl Dickens was here, we did have somebody make a large donation on the part of golf, and I think we were supposed to do something nice for this gentleman, and we never did. I think we really should follow through on that.
That's actually, that was part of nature committee discussion as well, about getting some benches and having an engravement in there for the gentleman's wife.
Yeah, I think we should follow through on that.
Yeah.
It was a big donation.
Denise, I'll follow up with you on those benches you mentioned.
Yeah, are those, we have a ton of benches that were brought over to the tennis center. Are those the kind of benches you're talking about? Those big.
I'd have to stop by. I'll make an appointment with you offline to meet up and go see it with you.
They're similar, they're just hopefully a different color. I mean, the color that we have on the golf course probably should be different for the Great Lawn area.
Okay, maybe a couple of offline discussions before we bring anything formal. Mark, when you're feeling a little bit better, please reach out to me. I'd like to talk to you about it a little bit. Okay, speaking of Nature Advisory Committee, any representative from the Nature Advisory Committee want to make a report?
That's it. Just
That's
some potential benches and engravement in the future, and
Okay.
possibly some topsoil and stuff, and some bulbs for the Great Lawn area, for the meadow area.
Okay, Mark, you also know this, the budget, I know we put $2,000 into the budget for nature in general, kind of non-golf course maintenance. Has that been deployed?
Only part of it. That's why we want to get this, if we have to buy
Sure.
benches or topsoil or whatever it is, we want to get that done before the end of June.
Okay,
Now that Audrey's gone, do we have anybody on a nature committee?
We technically do, but without leadership, there's not much movement. So Audrey's still kind of a little bit involved, but she's not leading anymore. So there hasn't been much impetus.
okay. Any other questions about Nature Advisory? All right. Thanks everybody for the reports. Good discussions. I think in item 7A, the tennis center pergola, since there was no action required, we kind of already discussed, right? And came up with a
Yep.
little action plan for how to move forward. So
Right.
I don't think we need to allocate more time there, unless there's anything else that people want to discuss about that. Okay. And then item B was kind of a pre-budget, but also deployment of cash assets discussion around the bank funds that we have, investments, and how we can make our money work a little harder for us. So I know, Gary, this was you bringing this up. And Mark, you just want to give a little overview of, sorry, I know your voice is a little
Okay.
stressed, but can you just give a little overview of how we're currently deploying it, and then what options we have?
Yeah. We have our entire bank balance is sitting with Connecticut Community Bank. And there's two issues, one of which is that we are above the FDIC insurance limit. So there's a safeguarding issue. Number two, we're not making all that much money on it at all. And that's what Gary had brought up. I had brought up the same discussion with our rep at CCB. And there wasn't really any options for us through the bank. So we have to look at other options, and that's what Gary was going to start looking at. Where can we move our money?
So effectively diversify with which institutions we hold our cash.
So you talk to the bank and say, we're interested in earning some money and we're going to move some money out of there, and they didn't want to offer us any interest on our accounts?
When I mentioned it last summer, there was simply that they didn't have anything better to offer. There was no safeguarding also against the FDIC limit, which is the problem, because it's one per TIN or social security
Yeah.
number.
So that's a federal problem, right? Unless they raise the limits, that's not going to be solved if we stay with the same institution. And that's what I said, like solving that problem would only come through diversifying who we hold or who we place our cash with, right?
Yep.
So that's an option on the table. But Mark, what are the current earning assets that we have? How are they deployed? And I find it difficult to believe that between last summer and this summer, with the interest rate environment being what it has been, that we don't have better options right now.
We have our money in a money market account with the bank, which also has a secondary checking account that it's linked to, and it clears out each day.
Yep, yep.
But we're making, I think, 0.35% or something like that.
Got it.
So there
So-
are obviously much better options to save money.
Yes. Here are my ideas. We keep a reasonable level of cash in an operating fund at this institution, less than the 250 limit, the FDIC limit.
Mhm.
So maybe try to target 200,000.
Mhm.
We're sitting on 463 end of April, right?
Somewhere around there.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then we should probably try to find another institution where we can put our capital reserve account. And we should, because that's kind of a fund that's going to be touched very rarely. It can probably be in some cash but earning facility, like a CD. MMA is not going to, I mean, even in a high rate environment, is not going to get us a lot of return. But a CD right now is actually turning pretty well. And then let's try to leverage a third institution where we can take not a reserve, but a portion of our operating cash and stick it into a earning CD. And then let's factor all of that into budget discussions.
Yes, well, I'll say I don't necessarily like a CD. I'd rather do it into an online savings account, which now are making 10 times what we're making at our current bank. And it gives us the option of just doing an online transfer. I can transfer in, I can transfer out if our bank balance is getting too big, too small, as the year with our cyclical cycle. With it being so cyclical, I like the idea of just moving money in and out as needed.
Okay, I would just like to comment. I'm part of the Rowayton Gardeners. We keep our money at Fairfield County Bank. We had the same sort of discussion at our board meeting, and we were just gonna try and look at investing less than $50,000. We were looking at investing $40,000 into like T-bills or something like that. And when we went to the bank, we said we wanted to invest this and move it out of the bank. Well, I'll make a long story short. Within less than an hour, we all of a sudden were making 3% on our lousy $80,000 at the bank. I think we need to go back to this community bank and say why we're not making more money on our account. I do agree we ought to move part of our money out from the bank just for FDIC, 250,000. But these small banks, as soon as you tell them you're going to move the money out of their bank, they panic, it seemed. And I think we really need to go back to them first and say we're thinking of moving so much money out of their bank and see what their reaction is. Okay, I think we should use the FDIC limit, but we should be earning money on anything that we leave at that bank. And then, yes, we ought to look at other facilities, other type of earning assets at other other banks. I do agree. I don't want, I want this in a capital preservation account, just in a money market. And I agree with Mark. We need to be able to move it on a, it's got to be really liquid so we can move it on a day's notice. But I think we should approach this bank where we are and say, we're going to move some money and get their reaction.
Well,
And
I-
why are we at this bank anyway? Is there any reason why we can't go to another bank if they're not going to pay us anything?
Well, it's not, no, of course, we can move whatever we want. They've always been good to us, even when we were in financial trouble. So I don't want to
Okay.
necessarily just cut ties there. I have what I consider is very good people there. And we also have a up to $250,000 line of credit with them as well,
Right.
which at one point really got us through some
Yeah.
Okay.
some trouble times. If my voice is fine tomorrow, I plan on going there anyway to do a bank run, a deposit run. So I can speak with the manager tomorrow, just kind of pick his brain about what we're just talking about, and then I'll get back to you.
And I
Okay.
think, Mark, with all options on the table, right, but being reasonable about the FDIC limits, it does open us up to, it exposes us a little bit, and we shouldn't be doing that. So that's something that's going to happen, and we should make that absolutely clear to them. It's just to what extent it's going to happen is the question. We do want some really fast cash that might not be quickly accessible and deployable with one of those online accounts or with a no penalty CD. So, we should have something in a local account. That's fine. But then the rest of it, yeah, it should be earning a lot more. I mean, if we're able to take if we're able to get 4% on 100 grand, that's 4,000 a year that we didn't have otherwise. Right. And so let's kind of put together a plan for how that's going to be reflected in budget, but we should be expecting at least 5,000 in interest revenue in the next fiscal year.
And the other thing is, should we write to Jennifer and just say, what are her suggestions, since that's kind of her type of position where she works, and what suggestions she might have?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I think it'll be a conversation, treasurer, finance committee. And then, once there's a plan, we'll send it out to everybody. It'll certainly be part of the budget discussion. So we'll at least talk about it at our next June meeting. But yeah, let's make this a feature of this year's budget.
Okay.
There's no reason we shouldn't get 3 to 4% on our money. Personally speaking, this is what you get, and you can change it within 24 hours from whatever it is. So there's no reason why we shouldn't do that. I agree.
Okay. Any other discussion on item 7B, the bank funds, investments, and FDIC discussion limits? All right, hearing none. Move on to 7C. And Jim, I think this is your show. This is appropriation of some capital expense to cover paving costs up at T, right? Jim, you're on mute. You're still on mute, Jim.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
There are a couple spots on the course that are pretty pathetic, and frankly, somebody someday is going to get off their cart and twist an ankle, and that's going to be on us. So what I want to do is, since some of these capital expenses aren't going to be made in this fiscal year, such as, like, I don't have time to organize the redoing of the garage, just time ran out on me. And there's some other things, a bunch of other things that we didn't spend money on. I would like to fix the cart path from 2 white T up to 2 blue T, which includes a cul-de-sac, just redo it completely. And fix and widen the path from halfway down from 14 green to 15 T to the 15th T. And when I say it's gonna be wider, we see backups there in the afternoons a lot. And people milling around, getting off their carts. And if you go look at that path, it's an ankle breaker. And that's not the only reason I want to do it. I mean, these two spots get cleaned up and the impression of the golf course becomes a little better every time. You know what I mean? So the cost for the bid that I'd like to go with is almost $19,000. And he said if I let him know tonight or tomorrow morning that he could definitely schedule it and be done 2 to 3 weeks. So I don't know if we need a vote on this, but there's definitely things in the capital improvement projects list that are not going to be completed this year and be pushed to next year. But since we're so flush, as you know, Mark was encouraging me to spend more money. So
Oh, I'm sure. That's totally within Mark's. I mean, if he was silent because his throat hurt, but probably didn't mean that.
Well, and what we do have is roughly $65,000 to $69,000 left in our CapEx budget for this year, which, as Jim said, with 5 weeks left in the year, a lot of stuff is not going to get done.
Yeah.
So I think this is easily doable.
So I guess that was my first question was, does this actually fit within capital expense budget? It sounds like it does. My next thing was what projects that need to get done are going to end up getting delayed. It sounds like, Jim, from what you're saying, the answer is none.
there are going to be some projects that get delayed, but not because we're going to do this.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And projects that need to get done that are going to get delayed because of this are none. There are
Right.
projects that need to get done, but they were going to be delayed anyway, and they'll be part
Yes.
of the budget discussion that goes into FY24
Correct.
and be prioritized accordingly.
Yep.
Okay. So, and then the last question that I had is it reasonable to think that this expense will be outlaid during this fiscal year? Sounds like on a 2 to 3
Yes.
week timeline, even with a little stress, it is reasonable. And Jim, not Jim, the other one, Mark.
The other one.
I'm sorry, that's what my mother always said when she couldn't figure out which kid's name to say. She would say the other one. So that's traveled to me. Mark, if it were to stretch to the first week of July or the second week of July, are the rules hard and fast that has to be an FY24 expense, or could it still be allocated after FY23 since the bulk of the work was done in 23?
If the work is being done in FY23, we can accrue for it. But generally speaking, if something starts July 1 and we get invoiced in July, it is a FY24 expense. You can't mess with stuff like that now.
Yeah.
But what we can do is plan to say, okay, we came in under 50,000 this year, so we can bump our CapEx budget by $50,000 next year if that's what we choose to do.
Yeah. I consider this to be an appropriation within budget. It's to some extent management's responsibility to make those decisions and keep the authority informed of that sort of move. And I think this is hitting all those hallmarks. So this doesn't seem like anything that we would need to vote on, as long as we're all informed and we all endorse that this is a good deployment of our capital expense.
And
I'll just make
Go
a
ahead.
comment. Sorry. So Jim, you're going to reward the golfers, the small amount of golfers that play off the blue tees on the second tee. Is that correct? Because I've never been up there, I must admit, never having the strength to hit the ball that far.
It's a
15
short
no
hole,
problem.
Alan. It's a short
This is
hole.
what
Go
you're
on up
doing,
there
right?
and pretend the white tees are up there.
How about those poor guys that are kind of going from 1 to 2 and
I knew you were
their
going to bring
teeth
that
fall
up.
out when they're going up that hill or whatever. I'm only kidding. That's one of my pet peeves. I'm only
Hey.
saying it. It's okay. It's all right. I'm just.
Hey,
putting
Jim,
it-
have them put the white tees on that further back tee once in a while. And then
Yeah.
Alan would have to go up there and
I'll
turn
do-
his cart around.
I'll only do it on the days that I see him on the tee sheet, but he's been
Okay.
injured, I think. He's on the injured reserve right
Gonna
now.
play the greens on that day, I think, you know.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jim, can I beg for just fill some those holes on going from 1 to 2? You know, up that hill, there are a couple of, you did some work on the side of one, but there's some holes in that path. Can we just fill them even if, can you
Yeah.
fill it with patch if you
Cold
don't
patch.
do it with this paving guy?
We'll do it. And the reason I'm avoiding that path right now is because it's not falling apart. The stuff that I want to do is falling apart and crumbling and
Yeah, I threw some of the broken stones into the woods today as I walked down. But yeah, but there's a
yeah, we'll
there's
take
a
we'll take a
giant,
close look at it. Yep.
yeah, there's a giant hole on that path if you can fill that just with patch.
It
Yeah.
sounds like I think I
Gary,
know where
thank you.
Gary's CapEx request is going to be focused. So everybody on board with us just kind of endorsing this as an informational update and saying, I don't think we need to vote on it.
We're good.
And then, okay. And Jim, you know, there's usually a little overage with these things, but you know, just keep us informed if it's going over budget.
Of course.
Obviously, with 65 left to go in 5 weeks, and this being kind of the only project that's going to be completed in that time period, there's likelihood that we could go over budget, but we don't want to, unless there's extra work to do. And then the last question that I had was, I mean, hearing the testimony tonight, not many people or their experiences are going to be impacted by the T at number 2. But 14 to 15 is heavy traffic. So is
Yeah.
that going to really be disruptive to golf?
I thought about that, and we can route the carts around for the couple days that project is going to take place, and we're not going to lose grass or anything as long as it's not pouring rain all day.
Okay.
So,
Well, if
there's a
it's pouring
way-
rain all day, well, I guess it would be cart path, but not a lot of traffic.
right.
Okay.
I want to say one thing, you know, as a golfer and having played a lot of golf courses, the first couple holes are very important. It's
Mhm.
where somebody decides sometimes if they're coming back or their overall impression of the golf course. And so I just think, and the turnaround up on number 2 is awful. That definitely needs to be done. But I think those are good holes to really concentrate on because, and then obviously 3 is really nice and 4, 5, and 6 are good. So it's important to have the first few holes looking good.
It's a
Can
really
we get a
interesting
ski
perspective.
rope on one?
Yeah, that's
Pull us
steep.
up the hill.
Okay, anything left to discuss on this item? All right. Doing pretty well on time, everybody. We're right on the schedule. And the next thing is to go into item number 8, which is executive session. We're going to make a motion to move into executive session. And in that motion, we also need to include inviting non-OHPA members, the staff members present, into the executive session for item 8A, which is discussion of golf course management company. So would anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay. Any second?
Second.
Couple of seconds. And any opposed? Good. Let's move into executive session. There's a second link that should have come from email address Zulma Roundtree. And we can close this, move into that one. Mark, I don't know how you're planning to be in 2 meetings at once, but I'm sure you'll figure it out.
I do it every month.
Oh, okay. So we'll move into executive session. We'll come back to public session to close it up. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
give a moment for Gary and Denise to come back too. Here's Gary.
I'm just turning off my video.
Oh, no worries. Just waiting for Denise to come back. What I'll do is I'll start texting her. Generally, when I start texting someone to come to the meeting,
There she is.
it's perfect. Never fails. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming back. I know it's late, so let's be efficient with time at the end of this meeting. We met in executive session. Item 8A required no action. That was discussion of golf course management companies. Item 8B does require action. And so I will make a motion. The discussion item was general manager for the park. And I will make a motion to authorize Vice Chair, OHPA Vice Chair Alan Dutton to negotiate a contract with an identified GM candidate pending passing a background check, the candidate passing a background check, and pending review by our legal team. Would anyone second that motion?
I second.
TJ seconds. And we'll do a roll call vote just to be thorough. When I call your name, just signal yay or nay or abstain. And I'll go in the order that folks are on my screen. I'll start with Rich Dellinger.
Yay.
Thank you. Alan Dutton.
Yes.
Gary Leeds.
Yay.
TJ Trimboli.
Yes.
Denise Brown.
Yes.
And myself, Joe Andrusco. I vote yes. And so it's unanimous. So we will be working on that contract. And when it comes time and all I's are dotted and T's are crossed, I will execute the contract. Excellent.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Alan, for all the work on this.
Yes, Alan, great work.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So much great work that I'll give you the opportunity to make a motion to adjourn.
So the motion is on the floor to adjourn the meeting that we've just had.
Any second?
Second.
Second, sorry.
All right.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Have a
motion
great night,
carries.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good discussion.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you very much.
Bye-bye. Be well.
Night.
And thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Feel better, Mark.
Thank you.
Ditto.